Hello everyone, back tuning in to today's second video, doing GWV Sunday Round Up for today's second video. So this is your usual eclectic mix of this and that for your Sunday afternoon viewing pleasure. We're going to have a look at things like CISO's temperature anomalies, solar activity. Got some news on the QBO now that the shutdown is over in America. They've updated the QBO index page at NOAA, so we'll be able to bring you the latest QBO numbers. And of course, we'll have your regular week to 10-day look ahead as well. We're going to start off with some pictures that have been sent to us of the snow, so I'll talk you through those in a moment. Just to say that today's first video was the spring analogues update. The spring analogues are finally underway again, thanks to the shutdown ending in America. It means that we have the reanalysis pages back up at NOAA, so first spring analogues were released earlier on today. That video is here on the homepage. Just scroll down page and you'll find it above the snow desk. Later on today, it will be placed on the spring updates page with a written summary to go with it as well. For anyone who can't watch the video, coming up later on this afternoon, in an hour or so, we're going to have a little bit on the summer, so just a very short sort of little update about the summer. And then tonight we've got Ensembles Watch, so 4 videos for you today. You're really getting your money's worth out of Gav's Weather Vids today. Right, let's go through these pictures first of all then. So this one was sent to us by J. Vincent Marchetto. This is showing Turin snow. Turin has had another snowfall over there in northwestern Italy. It's another one from Jay. So again, pretty deep snow cover there in northwestern parts of Italy. I think that was on Friday that happened. This one is from Liam Kenwood, showing snow in Maidstone, I should say. Liam emailed this to Gav's Weather Vids. So they had some snow down there in Maidstone on Friday night. Another one from Liam's back garden, snow looking pretty deep there down in Maidstone on Friday night. This is AJ in South Wales, showing snow in South Wales. So they had a little bit of snow down there. This one was shared with us on Facebook. This is William Duggan in Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland had a little bit of snow a couple of days ago. This is also shared with us on Facebook. This is from Chris Bell, showing snow in or on Dartmoor, so the snow is still lying up there in Dartmoor. This one, again from Facebook, Nicholas Chamberlain showing snow in Swansea. So again, it's one of the areas that was hit quite badly by snow on Thursday night. This is from Toby. It's shared on Gav's Weather Vids comment box. So this is from Toby down in the Isle of Wight. So even down there in the very far south of the country, I've got pretty deep snow down there on the Isle of Wight. This is from James Ackrill, our analogues and solar specialist. So this is showing some snow in Lincolnshire. A little bit of snow falling there yesterday morning. And the fields in Lincolnshire looking pretty icy and frozen yesterday. This is from Siren Bruin, showing snow in the Wicklow Mountains. Again, this was posted by Siren on Gav's Weather Vids comment box. That's Chris Newman with his dog enjoying the snow. So that's down in the southern part of the country. That's also Andy's dog in Glossop, showing Glossop snow up there on the Derbyshire Hills. Pretty deep snow up there. This is from Richard Trott, showing snow in Redcar. So that one is showing snow in Redcar from Richard. And also, this one also is showing snow in Redcar as well. So looking pretty deep up there in the northeastern part of England yesterday. Snow in Newcastle, that's from Hayley. So she had a little bit of snow up in Newcastle as well. I think that's on Friday night. This is from Mark Coleman. Again, pretty snow covered down there in the southern part of the country. This is from Snowflake, showing the Bristol suspension Mitcham Bridge, again, looking pretty icy and snow-covered. I think that one was on Friday night. Stanley has been in the Alps, and obviously the snow is lying pretty thick there, so real snow-covered car up in the Alps. And then this one is from Sheerham, and this is showing no snow in Dudley in the West Midlands. Sheerham hasn't had any snow, but it does look pretty frosty and cold. So the Midlands did very, very poorly for this particular cold spell in terms of getting snow. Been very little snow here where I am in West Northants. So it's a little bit further southwards of the Midlands, and that's what happened. So the Midlands really missed out on this particular snow event. Big thank you to everyone for sending their pictures through. I'll show you a few more tomorrow, but have been shared with us on Twitter. I haven't got time to go through the Twitter pics today, but I will go through those tomorrow. So there are various ways you can have your pictures featured in the videos. You can post them to the comment box at GWV. You can share them with us on our Facebook and Twitter accounts, and you can also email them to us at gazwithis@gmail.com. When we've got time, we're always happy to feature the pictures in the videos. Big thank you to everybody for sending through their snow pics, and so I'll show you a few more tomorrow that have been shared with us on Twitter. Right, so this is how snow cover is looking, not just for the UK, but for the whole of Eurasia. This is from the Natis and NOAA website. So, again, this is showing pretty deep and extensive snow cover across many parts of Europe and Russia too. So, as you'd expect, Russia is completely covered in snow. Of course, that snow is into many eastern parts of Europe as well. A little bit patchy going through Central Europe. You can see a whole of Scandinavia, as you would expect, is covered with snow as well. But as you go down in towards Germany, so northern parts of Germany, quite snow covered. Down in the southern part of Germany, not as much snow there. And then into France, the far north of France has got pretty widespread snow cover. But again, from central France southwards, not a lot till we get down towards the Pyrenees. You see the UK looking fairly snow-covered, so northern parts of the UK, quite a bit of snow cover there, and also, interestingly, down in the south, quite a bit of snow cover in Wales, and you can see that little area in the middle, through the Midlands into East Anglia, where there's very, very little snow lying at all. So those areas in the Midlands of England did really, really badly, were really unlucky, I think, not to get much in way of snow from this particular scenario. But of course, another time it could be that the Midlands gets the snow and southern parts of the country just gets rain. In fact, it is more likely to snow through the Midlands and parts of East Anglia than it is down in the far southern part of the country. So this was quite an unusual snow event, actually, to bring so much snow to lowland southern England. I mean, we saw a picture there even from the Isle of Wight showing pretty deep snow. So it's quite unusual to get this sort of snow event in the extreme southern part of the country. More generally, you would expect rain down there, and you'd expect more in way of snow a little bit further north. So quite an unusual snow event, this one. Anyway, that's how things are looking in terms of snow cover across Europe at the moment. This is what's going on in the oceans. This is how the oceans were looking when we did last week's Sunday Roundup. We've got our 3 areas of interest of the Equator-Pacific Ocean, the ENSO region just here. We've got the Northern Pacific up there, and we've got the Atlantic Ocean over here. So we're monitoring the decline or the collapse of El Nino. Really, it was a very weak El Nino anyway, barely registered as an El Nino. In fact, it may not ever get officially designated. We'll have to wait and see about that, but it was a very, very weak El Nino. It's on its way out. It's declining, as it would always do at this time of the year, as you're getting to the start of the year. The ENSO events, be they El Nino or La Nina, kind of die back to ENSO neutral. So you can see that last week we had the signature, still a very weakest signature of El Nino, over towards the Peruvian side of the Equator-Pacific, and interestingly over towards the Indonesian side. In between, it was a little bit cooler. So that's how things were looking last week. This is how things are looking now. Very little change, really. I think possibly we have cooled things down further over towards the Peruvian side, although there's not much in it, but I think perhaps those brighter colours have declined a little bit over here. These waters just here, right next to the coast of Peru, they're very shallow and they are prone to rapid temperature changes with the weather conditions. So it's always these deeper waters away from the coast that we tend to be more interested in. I think very slight changes on last week, and again possibly just a little bit of a further decline in the El Nino signature. Further north in the northern Pacific, very little change there. I think quite stable up here, and then over in the Atlantic Ocean, let's have a look at last week and then compare to the very latest. We can see that things have warmed up further through the tropical Atlantic around here. Over towards Africa. So if that goes on, could be quite interesting when we get to the summer, because that's the area where we spawn tropical storms and hurricanes, of course. So you've got warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies from Africa over towards the Caribbean. Then in the summer and in the autumn, then watch out, because that's where we get our hurricanes and storms blowing up. But of course, it's really early on that. It's only February, so we may well see quite a cooling of the temperature by the time we get through to the summer. There. Further north in the central northern part of the North Atlantic Ocean, that's how things looking last week, that's how things looking now. So again, looking really quite stable across many parts of the Northern Atlantic Ocean. No real changes up there. Quite cold with the sea surface temperature anomalies around the Bay of Biscay and around Portugal, and then going into the Mediterranean. They're all shallow waters. They're prone to temperature changes with the weather conditions. So it's been a relatively cool summer across, winter I should say, across southern parts of Europe. So that's the reason we've got relatively cool sea surface temperature anomalies down there. Solar activity next. This is how the, things are looking on the solar disk on our side of this today from solarham.net. So we'll be completely spotless, no sunspots whatsoever on the solar disk. And Solarham is reporting that solar activity is likely to stay at very low, so it's at very low levels for today, and it's likely to stay at very low levels for the next 3 days. So we are well and truly into solar minimum. We can expect many days to come like this, where we don't have any sunspots. This is the GWV Sunday Round Up solar activity tracker sent through by our good friend James Ackrill this morning. This is updated to today, the 3rd of the 2nd, 2019. You can see that we talked about this last week, had a little tick up in sunspots last week. That's indicated by the orange line, each day's sunspots indicated by that orange line. Had a little tick up last week in solar activity, very minor compared to the cycle overall, but it was a little bit. We'd had a little bit of activity last week. It was enough to lift the two trend lines, the thick green and the thick red lines, upwards. But they're declining again now. We've had several days without any sunspots, so because of that, we're starting to see those thick green and red lines beginning to decline once again. It'd be interesting to see how many days of spotlessness we get this time, because of course the further into solar minimum we're going, the longer the runs of spotless days should get. So eventually, when we get to true solar minimum, we will probably find that we may get a month or two without any sunspots appearing whatsoever. So there's some very, very quiet at the moment, as you'd expect it to be when you're at this period of the solar cycle. Solar minimum does increase your chances of northern blocking and a cold winter, but it's not a guarantee of anything. We explain this all the time, that although it's kind of like loading the dice a little bit in favour of a certain outcome. So when you're at solar minimum, the jet stream appears to be a little bit weaker coming across the Atlantic into Europe, and that can sometimes allow high latitude blocking to get going. But again, it doesn't guarantee anything. Each winter is unique unto itself, and each winter will have various other things going on and so those things can override the solar signal. So it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get cold winters around solar minimum, but it certainly is one of the things that tends to coincide with an increased risk of colder winters anyway. We shall keep monitoring solar activity in the GWV Sunday round. We would normally do Solar Sunday in February, but because we're so late with the spring updates this year because of a shutdown in America not being able to get the analogues together, it means that we're not going to be able to do Solar Sunday in this month. We're probably going to have to push that back to March, unfortunately. But every Sunday from now through to the end of the month, we're going to have to do spring updates to try and get a spring forecast together. So Solar Sunday will probably be with you in March. Right, I said that the QBO has updated, the QBO page has updated at NOAA, so this is it. This is the index showing the quasi-biennial oscillation month by month, going all the way back into the end of the 1940s. So the QBO is an index that's reflecting the strength of the zonal westerlies, essentially. When you are in a westerly QBO, the zonal westerlies in the northern hemisphere are going to be strengthened. It's a zonal signal. When you're in an easterly QBO phase, the zonal westerlies are going to be weakened, kind of like reversal of the zonal westerlies in the northern hemisphere. So broadly speaking, westerly QBOs tend to coincide with milder winters, and easterly QBOs tend to coincide with colder winters with a greater chance of northern blocking. Of course, it's not that simple. There are several winters that have occurred, cold winters that have occurred with the westerly QBO, and there are several mild winters that have occurred with an easterly QBO. So nothing is ever completely straightforward in terms of the weather, in terms of long-range forecasting. The QBO is one of those things that is never straightforward, but it does slightly increase the chance of the colder winter in an easterly QBO, and slightly increase the chance of a milder winter when you're in a westerly QBO. Now, what's been happening over the last few months is that we have had a very strong easterly QBO, which started in 2017 and reached its peak in the summer of 2018. Since then, the QBO has been transitioning from its easterly to its westerly phase. So as far as we could get before the shutdown was with November's QBO number, which came out at 3.36. That number just there, that was the first sort of westerly QBO number for the westerly QBO phase that we were entering. You see, back in the summer, we had these very negative numbers. That's the easterly QBO reaching its peak in June and in July. Then, quite quickly, the easterly QBO reversed into its westerly QBO, which started in November. So we've got December and January's QBO numbers updated now. So December came out at plus 8.05. We thought that was going to happen. We thought it would be around plus 8 for the QBO number. But that's confirmation of it. And then January comes out at plus 9. So it's just a slight strengthening of westerly QBO from December through to January. February's QBO number will probably come out even more positive. It will probably come out somewhere around plus 10, 11, 12, in that sort of ballpark. And then we'll go through the rest of the spring, April, May, March, April, May, June, July, August. We'll go through the spring and the summer with an increasingly strong westerly QBO. It will probably, I would have thought, reach its peak around August or September, this westerly QBO, and then it should start to weaken through the rest of the autumn. Possibly by December, we will find ourselves going back into the easterly QBO phase. So the winter of 2019-20 should be a transitioning westerly to easterly QBO winter, which will be quite interesting. This winter has been transitioning easterly to westerly with the QBO. Next winter should be transitioning westerly to easterly with the QBO. That's what should be happening. You never totally guarantee, because we did have that situation back in 2015, 2016, when we should have gone from a westerly QBO to an easterly QBO, but the easterly QBO failed, and we just carried on with the westerly QBO throughout the whole of 2016 and even into the first half of 2017 as well. So that was an incredibly long westerly QBO phase that we had there from 2015 2017. The QBO should be very reliable. It should almost be like a pulse or a heartbeat that is just continuous. So what happened there in 2015-16 was very, very unusual. We hadn't observed that happening certainly back to the 1940s. But it was very rare, so I wouldn't anticipate that happening this time, unless we get something like a Super Nino turning up, a Super El Nino turning up. But I think we will be finding ourselves transitioning from westerly to easterly QBO next winter. But for now, the westerly QBO is going to be strengthening. Of course, this is a signal for strengthening the zonal westerlies. And interestingly, we are seeing signs of the zonal westerlies getting their act together at the moment. More on that very shortly. This is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. So the black line here tells us where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red lines at the end where GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Just an index that's reflecting the state of the, actually not driving anything, just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. So when the Arctic Oscillation is negative, you're going to have high pressure somewhere over the pole. You're going to have blocking, high latitude blocking over the North Pole. And at the moment, the Arctic Oscillation is very negative, actually. But you see it's on the up. So over the next week, we're going to see it transitioning back towards neutral with the Arctic Oscillation. And then as you get through to the second week of February into middle of the month, the GFS ensembles are now forecasting that we're going to go into a positive phase of the Arctic Oscillation. That's something we haven't really seen, not truly positive with the Arctic Oscillation since the first half of December, this period just here. And generally we have been in quite a negative phase of the AO going right way back to October, really. You see that the first half and the middle part of October, that was quite positive with the Arctic Oscillation. Then towards the end of October, we went negative, stayed around neutral to negative through much of December, popped up to positive for a little while with the AO through the first half of December. Didn't last all that long, though, and since then, we've generally been neutral to negative with the Arctic Oscillation, particularly so in the last couple of weeks, of course. But it looks like a big change could be on the way with the AO, a strengthening positive AO signal, which would tell us that low pressure could well be coming back towards the North Pole. We might start to lose the high latitude blocking that we've been seeing over the past few weeks, which has brought cold conditions to many parts of the mid-latitudes, although it's not been overly cold in the UK, at least until the last few days. Many parts of the northern hemisphere in the mid-latitudes have had some pretty cold conditions. Of course, we dropped the polar vortex down into the Midwest of America just a couple of days ago, so it was severely cold over there. They are forecasts, remember, so they're as unreliable as any other forecast output ensemble data that we would look at. They're prone to changes, so it may not be that the AO is going to strengthen as positive as that, but that's what the signal was showing with the Arctic Oscillation yesterday. North Atlantic Oscillation is very similar, so throughout this winter we've had the AO and the NAO at odds with one another, because whilst the AO, Arctic Oscillation, has generally been in a more neutral to negative phase, the NAO has been stubbornly staying at positive. The black line again shows where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation, red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting North Atlantic Oscillation to go. You see that except for this one little period just here around the new year, generally the North Atlantic Oscillation since the 1st of December has been neutral to positive, particularly so through January. So we've had the Atlantic and the Arctic at odds. It looks as though the GFS ensembles are forecasting the North Atlantic Oscillation to stay in positive territory through to the middle of February as well. So finally, it looks like the two indexes are coming into line with one another. Looks like by the time we get through to the middle of February, we're going to have both the AO and the NAO in positive territory. This could be a signal for westerlies. This could be a signal for zonality, and I suppose it would tie in with that strengthening westerly QBO as well. The winter forecast, the GWV winter forecast, along with many others, was expecting February to potentially be quite a cold month, but these signals are looking a little bit worrying, I have to say, for anyone who wants cold conditions in February. Make the most of today. It's still cold today, but it'll be on its way out quite shortly. And man, well, who knows when the cold will come back. But certainly up to the middle of February, it looks like both the AO and the NAO are going to be in their positive phases. Let's do a bit of forecast then. So these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. Looking at Glossop in Derbyshire today, another place on our list of suggested locations for this part of the video. So the red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Glossop, and at the moment we're still pretty cold, but those temperatures are going to be lifting up over the next few days, going to go a lot milder. So if you don't like the cold weather, a lot of people don't like cold weather, let's be honest, a lot of people don't like snow. If you don't like snow, ice and frost, then, well, it's going to be on its way out very shortly, and by the time you get through to the middle of the coming week, it'll all be gone, all the snow will be melted. That might cause its own problems, of course. It might be a little bit of localised flooding, places where we've got quite deep snow, but it'll soon be on its way out, and temperatures will be milder. Now, as we get through towards the end of the coming week, we're going to find that temperatures drop a little bit again, but not going particularly cold. But then from next weekend onwards through into like the second week of February, and then running up towards the middle part of the month, it does look as though we've got a really quite a dramatic warming trend appearing here. Look how the ensembles are taking off. Now, there are a few cold outliers still left within the GFS ensembles. These lines just here are relatively cold GFS members, but they are in a real minority now. Most of these GFS ensembles through the second week of February and up to the middle of the month are going mild, even very mild, potentially. We could be talking about temperatures going into the teens Celsius, I would have thought, by the time we get further into the second week of February. So that's going very mild indeed. We're going to do Ensembles Watch tonight, and we'll go through all the GFS Ensemble members, see how many of them are showing very mild conditions for the middle part of February. But it looks like there's quite a few of them, I have to say, on that graph. As far as precipitation is concerned for Glossop, so plenty of rainfall spikes coming up over the next couple of weeks. There's perhaps a little bit of a drying trend appearing there from around the middle of February into the second half of the month, but that's very long way out, right at the extended range. Essentially, up to the middle of the month, it looks very unsettled. So increasingly mild, but increasingly wet. Looks like it's the signal through the first half of February for Glossop, and probably for other parts of the country too. Temperature anomalies are looking like this in the week ahead. Forecast from the 3rd through to the 11th of February to be above average for most parts of the UK and Ireland. A mild week coming up. Expect those to trend milder over the next few days unless something seriously changes with the model output. Precipitation anomalies from the 3rd to the 11th of February above average. It's getting wetter, so it's getting milder, but it's getting wetter as well. They may trend wetter still, those charts, over the next few days. This is how the midnight run of the GFS was looking. Low pressure in the Atlantic, wet and windy conditions through the remainder of the week. Low pressure churning away into the UK up to the weekend, and that goes on into next week as well. This is Monday the 11th of February. Low pressure bring bands of wet windy weather across the country, but mild. The wind is coming up from the southwest, so no problems with temperatures. Potentially very mild at times in the warm sectors. Now, up towards day 10, we start to get this strengthening signal for high pressure. So this is Wednesday the 13th of February, where we've got a big ridge then starting to sit across central and southern parts of Europe. It's situated kind of like over the Alps and down into the central Med, and that's starting to waft up very mild air from the southwest. That could lift temperatures into the mid-teens Celsius if that came off. It's not all that far removed from the same day in 1998 when we had temperatures going up to 20 degrees. I doubt we'll get temperatures going that high with that, but it would certainly be very mild. You would certainly get temperatures into below to mid-teens Celsius if those heights start rising around the Alps. Very much unexpected compared to what we was thinking about with the winter forecast, I have to say. In the more extended range, we keep this ridge close to southern parts of the country, centering itself over France and Germany, still bringing up these mild or very mild southwesterly winds. You might get some sort of inversion underneath high pressure, of course, so you might be able to cool things down a bit through frost and fog. But essentially, this is a very mild pattern that the GFS is going for the middle of February. That's into the 17th February, very long way out, beginning to drag up southerly winds then out of Spain and North Africa. That's how we finish up on the 19th of February as far as we can go. Still anticyclonic, trying to lift the high pressure up towards Scandinavia, but still basically a lot of dry and very mild conditions there. The 6 o'clock run of the GFS has been updating while I've been doing the video, so let's just quickly run through that. Looking wet and windy through the middle part of the week. These unsettled conditions staying with us into the coming weekend as well. Regular bouts of rain, quite strong winds too. Into next week, heights again, rising look across France, Spain, and down into Mediterranean. That's dragging up very mild air, this time from the Canary Islands, pumping up across the UK. So this is a really mild spell of weather that's developing here with the GFS for the middle part of February. That's day 10, Wednesday 13th of February, with high pressure covering most of Central and Southern Europe. The winds are bumping up from the south or southwest, so got kind of like a long fetch southerly to southwesterly across the country. Again, temperatures into the low to mid-teens Celsius will be very likely. In the more extended range beyond day 10, keeping anticyclonic influences going. Notice it's trying to ridge itself up towards Scandinavia, but not really able to do so. We just keep that high pressure sitting around western parts of Europe up to the end of the GFS run, which is Tuesday the 19th of February. We still have a lot of high pressure centering over the UK and across much of Europe as well. And of course, again, under that high pressure, you might get an inversion, so you might get frost and fog starting to develop as that high pressure becomes kind of like centrally located over top of the UK. But essentially, this is a mild outlook, potentially a very mild outlook into the middle of February. You'll notice heights remain low to the north, no sign of any sort of blocking around Greenland or Scandinavia. The high pressure is kind of like a mid-latitude high, sitting and covering across much of Europe through the middle of February. Not good news at all if you want cold and snowy weather. That's how the ECM is looking. So again, wet and windy on Wednesday into Thursday, into Friday, and into weekend. Low pressure just keeps battering in from off the Atlantic. So regular bouts of rain. Moving up towards day 10, the ECM is a little bit different compared to the GFS. It is raising heights to some degree to our southwest across France and Spain, so it's trying to drag up this southwesterly, but heights are a little bit higher to our north. They're trying to bring cold air down from the north, so the ECM, it isn't anywhere near as mild, certainly at day 10, as what the GFS outputs are showing. And it is, though, going towards high pressure through the middle part of February after that very wet and unsettled phase coming up in the next few days. By day 10, it is raising heights, but it's not pulling in that very mild air from either southern Europe or from the Canary Islands. These are the options that are on the table with the ECM ensembles in terms of the postage stamps from the Icelandic Met Office. This is how things look at day 10 on the 13th of February. So we've got 20 ECM ensemble members that have high pressure to our south across France. They have low pressure at day 10 in the Atlantic and going to our north. They do have some high pressure heights rising, some high pressure close towards Greenland, interestingly, and they're bringing up generally quite mild southwesterly winds. But if heights were to rise any more towards Greenland, they would probably start to suggest something a bit colder. There's 17, including the operational ECM run that looks like this. They have low pressure in the middle of the North Atlantic. They have high pressure over and to the south of the UK. So mild conditions really bringing up the winds from the southwest. Not as mild at day 10 with the ECM operational run as the GFS output is, but nevertheless sort of trying to go in that direction. And then there's another 14 ECM ensemble members that have genuine northern blocking. They have a ridge of high pressure to the north of Scotland and back to Scandinavia, and they're pulling in easterly winds. So it's a minority option, but there is still the possibility that by day 10 things could look very, very different. Things could be a lot colder. But again, bear in mind, those 14, they do include the controlled ECM run, but bear in mind those 14 are a minority option at day 10 with the ECM ensembles. In 2 weeks' time, this is all the options that are on the table with the ECM ensembles. This is for the 18th of February, 360 hours away. So we've got 11 ECM ensemble members in 2 weeks' time that look very unsettled with low pressure to the west of the country, bringing those strong westerly winds. Then there's another 9 that have low pressure centred more or less over the top of the UK. Those also are quite unsettled. There's a further 8 that have high pressure over the UK. So they're settled. They are trying to extending up towards high pressure to the north, but they're generally settled and mild, unless there's an inversion under the high pressure. They're generally mild with the wind coming from a southerly or westerly direction. Then there's 8 that have a bit of a blocking signal towards Greenland. I'd say these ones up here as well have a bit of blocking towards Greenland, but it's quite weak. But on these 8 just here, they've got a bit of a stronger blocking signal towards Greenland with a trough of below average heights in the Atlantic over the UK. So they're very unsettled ECM ensemble members. There's another 8 that has, again, genuine northern blocking with high pressure towards Scandinavia. They're cold, bringing in wind from the east. And then there's another 7 that have high pressure to the north of Scotland and back towards Greenland. This is a little bit of a change within the ECM ensembles compared to yesterday. I think the ECM ensembles in 2 weeks' time have increased the possibility of northern blocking, either towards Scandinavia or towards Greenland. It's a long way out. It's 2 weeks away. But just a bit of a change there, a little bit of a shift within the ECM ensembles today, telling us that despite the fact it looks like it's going to be quite mild up to the middle of February, this winter may not be done with us yet. So if you want cold weather, if you want more cold weather, and you want some snow, particularly those areas that didn't manage to get any snow from the last few days, it all may not be lost. There is a possibility that we might get some colder weather coming again through the middle and second half of February. Finally, the CFS V2, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 3rd to the 9th of February. The coming week has below average heights in the Atlantic, has a lot of high pressure to the north, but it's just not in the right position to bring us anything particularly cold, because with low pressure close to the UK to our west, high pressure down towards Spain and Portugal, we're bringing in a westerly wind, so it's going to be unsettled and mild in the week ahead. That's how things are looking in week 2. It's the 10th to the 16th of February. Below average height centred over the top of the UK, more or less. There is a blocking signal towards Greenland. Again, probably not quite in right position to bring us anything particularly cold. I think we're still bringing the wind in from off the Atlantic there up to the middle of February. Notice it's not really showing any signs of those big height rises around the Alps, around Spain, Portugal. It's not seeing that sort of very mild, long fetch wind from the southerly wind from sort of North Africa or the Med or from the Canary Islands that the GFS didn't see it particularly with the ECM, but that the GFS at the moment is quite keen on as we go through the second week of February. The CFS not really seeing it. Then week 3, the 17th to the 23rd of February, again, quite strong blocking signals to the north. And now the trough of below average heights is beginning to centre more to our south. So now we would possibly be able to start thinking about bringing colder air back into the UK. So going into the second half of February, possibly turning colder and more wintry there in week 3. And finally, we get to week 4. And again, this looks like it could be a lot colder. This is the 24th of February through to the 2nd of March. Again, strong northern blocking signal close to Greenland and Iceland and back into the North Pole. Below average heights back to central parts of Europe. So this would again be pulling in the wind from a north or from a northeasterly direction. It does have this ridge off the coast of Spain and Portugal. That's the Azores High. So obviously that's trying to bring mild air into the UK. But I think, reading between the lines, the CFS wants to turn things colder again through the second half of February, from around the middle of the month onwards. So it all remains to be seen how that's going to play out. Certainly for the next week to 10 days, it looks like the Atlantic is unleashed. We did a video yesterday, Westerlies strike back, and that's exactly what's going to be happening. Westerlies are coming back in the week ahead. It's going to be a lot milder, and it's going to be quite wet and windy at times too. Get towards the middle part of February. That's when got a bit of uncertainty. Are we going to get those high pressure and height rises developing around the Alps and get those really balmy southerly winds? Or will we sort of go more towards high pressure centering over the UK? If the high pressure does centre over the UK, will it eventually go north again, as the CFS is suggesting, and begin to return us to colder conditions in the second half of the month? I say all will be revealed in the days ahead. Right, that's your GWV Sunday Roundup for today. Coming up later on this afternoon, we're going to have a little bit about summer, just a short video talking about summer 2019 and looking at some past summers as well. And then we're going to have the Ensembles Watch tonight. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.